Hello everyone, welcome back to AV Chess Lab as we get our tactics in this morning here on chess.com. Alright, so let's just get started. Okay, so bishop to e4. Our opponent is threatening checkmate here. So is there a way we can prevent this from happening? Oh, okay, so notice that this rook is on the 7th rank. We're also about to promote, but the bishop is in the way. This bishop here. So the idea in this puzzle is to create either a deflection in which this bishop would have to move back and not threaten checkmate, that way we can get enough time to promote, or this king moves in here and we can promote queen and give a check at the same time. So with that, the move is this. We get a queen, we check, and we win the game. Okay, very interesting first tactic of the day. Okay, so what do we have here? For starters, we're trying to take a queen, but our opponent is also threatening to take our rook. But if we capture here and he captures back, we simply capture with our rook and we're up a whole piece. So I'm gonna go for that. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so the opponent is trying to take our queen. So we have to do something about that. What should we do? Okay, so the idea here is to somehow give a check on e3 so we can capture this rook. But at the moment he's attacking our queen. But notice that if we push this pawn forward, we're going to be attacking his queen with our pawn. So if he takes, we simply, instead of taking the queen, we actually get a queen ourselves with check. No, that doesn't work. Take that back. Take that back. I thought the king was on h1 for some reason. So if we push on e2, he takes our queen. We take his queen, bishop takes, and okay, so that's the solution. And then we give a check on e1, which will be checkmate actually. So he can't really take our queen. And when he takes our pawn, we can deliver this check on e3 and take his rook. Now the question is, what happens if he takes the pawn with the rook? That's what I'm trying to evaluate at the moment. Because we can capture, rook takes, but then simply queen takes. But if queen takes, then we have a check on c1, take the rook again. Okay, so I'm gonna go for this. Since queen takes, we have a check on c1, taking the rook. Okay, it was a similar idea, but we needed to work through the take on e2, which was a bit tricky. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. All right, so this is simple. I mean, we have to do something about this check. So I think we have to take. There's no other move. Either we take or we lose the game. So, and here, it's just a question: how do we prevent this king from stopping our pawn promotion? And we simply come here, and then, do we have time to play king to e2? Is the question. Because if we come here, he simply goes there. Okay, so we just push the pawn. He can't really stop it. All right. So first things first, this king, I have no idea how he got there. But it is in a very awkward situation. So the idea is that any checks here or here is going to put the king in a very uncomfortable situation. So the first move is to prevent this king also from going to these two squares. And we do that by giving a check on d2. Now, whatever blocks, it doesn't matter. We have these two squares covered with the queen, and we have these two squares covered with this pawn. So any check now here wins. Okay. Very interesting puzzle, very interesting king situation. Okay, so at first glance, it just looks like we can pick up a queen by going here. So I don't see why not. All right. That one was a pretty simple one. Not sure why it had a rating of 1625, but okay. Okay, I have a feeling this position is going to be tied up to some queen to a5 check, picking up the bishop. The question is, how exactly? Because if we give check, knight to c3 simply protects the bishop. But then we can go bishop b4. He takes our knight with check, pawn takes. He plays queen to d2, for example. And then we can simply play knight to e4, winning the knight. So that looks kind of logical. So check. We'll come here with the bishop. He takes. We takes. Well, now we simply take the knight here. But let's take a move back, because let's say he doesn't castle, for example. The move we were calculating, either queen to d2 or queen to d3. Regardless of any of those two moves, we simply go knight here. And notice that there's no way to, because of the pin, there's no way for him to move, and we're just simply going to win that knight anyway. Okay. So a very good thematic win here. Okay, so notice that in this situation, the king is the only thing protecting this rook. So if we can get it to somehow move away, we can simply win the game. And at the same time, we can do this by giving checks with this pawn here. And it's going to allow us to keep moving this pawn forward until it actually becomes a queen, since he cannot be taken. So after this check, the king moves back. So notice he has to stay around the rook, otherwise we take it. But here we give another check. And this time he has to take it, otherwise it becomes a queen on the next move. And we can simply capture the rook. So let's see here what could happen. If king to b2, we simply take the rook, right? So king to b2, we take the rook. And he has to take the pawn. Otherwise, we get a queen next move. Okay, very cool one. Okay. So I see a lot of checks. The problem is, which one do we actually do? Which one do we actually make? So we can take here with a knight check. That's one check. We can go queen h5 check. And after the king moves to the dark square, we can take this pawn with check. So that's another possibility. But he simply repeats the position and goes back to e8 if we do this maneuver. So the other thing is to give a check. But then he simply goes king f7, and I'm having a hard time coming up with a move after that. We do have queen h5, but he simply takes here. Oh, but if he comes here, we can take on d7, knight takes, and we take the rook. Okay, that seems like a logical thing to do. Okay. All right. So far, so good. Oof. I see this. He's trying to create some nastiness here on b7 square. So how should we deal with this situation? This knight is kind of loose. Notice that if we give a check after the king moves, we have both the bishop and the queen will be hitting this knight. And it should pretty much win, I believe. He has to do something about this. He doesn't have time to take on b7. So I think we should go for that. Okay, he takes on b7. We can simply take the queen. All right, we're moving up nicely. We're up to 1644 rating. So yeah, why not? So this king is in a weird situation here. It almost looks like it's gonna get mated and there's not a good way to stop it. His only escape square is that one. And if we can manage to somehow prevent that, notice that a check on h6 on this square, it will be checkmate since the king has nowhere to go. So the move is this, and we simply deliver checkmate. Okay, very nice pattern there. All right, what do we have here? So at first glance, I could simply take here, forking both the queen and rook. But let's then take a look at checks, for example. We have a check on a8, but the king moves here and we can take the rook. That's another possibility. But if we do that, we don't really come up ahead material anywhere with that maneuver. Then again, with this one, we do threaten both pieces, but I don't think we get... Actually, I do believe we get somewhere, because if the queen has to come here after the queen takes, then we have this check picking up the queen. So I think this wins. Okay, and he decides to go all the way back here, giving me a free piece, which we're going to take since we simply have the same threat anyway. Okay. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look to see if they allow us to work through the calculations. So no, they don't. So, but okay, let's put some arrows in it. Queen here, protecting the rook. We simply take the rook. The queen takes. We give a check. The king moves out the way, and we pick up the queen. All right. So that one was very interesting as well. Okay. Queen out early. Bishop protecting the square on c7. How can we take advantage of all of this? This queen doesn't have many squares to go to. Notice that almost all the squares are taken. The only square that it can move to that is not right now taken will be here, here, and here. So we had to combine somehow to put this bishop there and put this pawn here. And this queen will be trapped. So the way to do that is to create a deflection here on the square on c7. So notice that if we take here with check, we're going to take this rook. So if he wants to save the rook, he has to take here. And after he does, we go to g5, since the bishop no longer is in that diagonal. The queen has to go to g4, and then we simply play h3, and we trap the queen. So that has to be the solution to the problem. And okay, we take the queen and simply win the game. Okay, this has to be a checkmate because he doesn't have any checks. I mean, he does, he has a check here, but we can simply play bishop f8, getting away from the checks. So I am not too worried about it. Okay, so he's just going to give us the material, and notice that this will be checkmate on the next move. All right, let's do one last one, since it will put us at 1700 plus. And hopefully we do not get it wrong. Okay, so there's a material imbalance, 2 pieces for the rook, and both sides have a queen. This pawn's very advanced, so we need to find a way to get down there so we can get a queen. But it's not very simple to accomplish. I'm looking at moves like rook to g3, for example, attacking the knight, and if the knight moves, attacking the bishop. I'm also considering the fact that this queen has no checks. So we have the d7 square covered with our queen. So any checks there we can simply capture. And any checks here with the knight we can simply capture with our rook as well. And if we go here, if he simply decides to protect the knight with the king, we can take it. The queen takes, queen takes, and after king takes, we can get a queen with our pawn. So I am going to go for rook to g3. And okay, that's simply the solution. So the best line here, and actually we only got 5 points, putting us exactly at 1700. If the king goes here, the line we were looking at, just rook takes. If actually even queen takes is more forcing, but okay. So yeah, I would go for queen takes because it's a little bit more forcing. Queen takes, he has to take with the queen. Then we take with the rook check. If the king decides to take the pawn, we simply take the bishop and we're up a rook and we win the game. All right, so that puts us at 1700 and at the goal for the day. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the tactics and were able to learn from them. If you liked the video, hit the like button and leave a comment down below. As always, stay safe, have a great day, and show respect to your opponent. See you next time.